This is the other chapter of my uploads where I was talking about initiating a hustle project, coming in lines of like where I would have liked to continue pushing out productivity in lines of running gag theme to where I am right now, uh, in more intellectual and explorative matter, and due nature of like loving to like pick up something and seeing the practical aspect of like taking in readings. Doesn't need to be readings, videos at work too. Yeah, all form of mediums. Generally, it is the individual and how he projects himself in terms of content production. And in a kind of contextual situation of an omni channel, it's kind of hard to find the appropriate target audience. Because let's be honest, not everyone is that into these kind of things. But in lines of like saying that you want to start a company, a brand from something that has projected in terms of infamy, in a kind of like stark work kind of way. Like again, people who like these things are like people who like to manage and build themselves and all these are the ones that are going to be expected to do the extra mile steps to do the kind of like resource work and like support this team. I do want to talk about a few resources that I was using, and they will be snippet in this video. And this is the figurative project of like constructing in lines of a figurative a infamy infamy meme implication that's going downwards towards a kind of like projected aspect in a figurative sense. So the idea is just like, well, if I had the resources and lines of like what had built up from from a kind of like running theme, how do I go onwards to be able to create a idea to make a product, a conceptualize a product, and this is coming lines of like buying in terms of trends, you know. So this was really fun for me to explore it because like I wanted to see would I ever be able to figuratively project having the concept of like money opportunities. Yeah. So uh, so so let's go. Let's kind of like push out the implication. So I want to talk about some spending that I made in lines of my ways that I was trying to make money. I'm not gonna go into too much detail. There's a bit of like turmoil feeling about this right now. So we'll just say that I've taken a lot of time to put down some meetings because I held an interest in it, and the push forward of the project was going to be at this point in lines of yeah, combining these knowledge together so you guys get a good picture. So I've used a few resources. This, yeah, uh, the Successful Career Toolkit for Mastering Business Skills. It has some interesting aspects in consideration in conceptualized stratifying management skills, or like key things to like keep in mind if like you are a manager of certain things, where you kind of shift some ideas or responsibility. The Marketing 4.0. This is a really interesting book. It talks in lines from traditional marketing strategies to where we are at current modern area for like digital marketing. It's very interesting. You could say in lines of like anybody that's starting a business in that side. Um, it's already examples out there right for that. It's just in lines of current circumstances, like how do you do that? And I thought this was really interesting and a fun read to do. And finally, the Stephen Barnett, a BBC Maestro, giving you a kind of guidance of like some stepwise process, and it gets much better at the end. Starting out just kind of being kind of like a basic guide. So like you gotta sit in your way all the way through till the end, and you really get fleshed out. Some of the content I felt are very fun to watch. Um, I would mostly take a stance of saying all these educational resources uh, give me an idea of like there's obviously a problem in resources, and it's a big deal for me to really put money and starting a business in this way without support because unfortunately environment and family connections are a big thing. So like I don't think I'm in a kind of circumstances where I could do that, and there's been a lot of like some of the YouTube videos of Dragon Den. I'm sure all of you are fans of the series, where I watched a few of their of their product in lines of a kind of like a popularized joke meme externalized from being the source of things from infamy. I like to say I've learned a lot in terms of understanding the aspects of practicality in terms of business. So it's always fun to watch these series and see what you can pull out because there's a lot of cool conceptualized ideas. And the show's very old, so like a lot of the season dragons, it's really hard to surprise them in any way that's unexpected from like business ideas. Even though I know the ones that I enjoy, I'm making a deep appreciation that the digital consumption of entertainment is still probably going to be the mainstream for everyone. So it's kind of like, do you prefer your development to be in one side, or do you prefer the way that the digitalization is leading towards easy access? I say it's all in lines of like personal development and enjoyment in terms of like externalization. So for the purpose of my channel, I'm kind of like learning from these things from scratch from like what I could get. So it's like, I'm showing you what I got and what I want to like generate in the terms of like this channel basically follows me everywhere I go. So I like to just talk about some things. Let's talk about the let's talk about some of this resources that I came in lines of understanding. So understanding business in social media. So there was a lot of written aspects to it, and I'd say because it's quite interesting. Uh, I gotta say, like there are some one of the things I really like about one of the sources. So I will mention this dragon, figurative dragon. I know he's more recently new. I've heard of him bits and bobs, but never like fully dive into it. And his journey is a bit sad. I'm not gonna lie. So it's relatable in the lines of going into a very difficult time, having found success from high school, from his opportunity, and making a depreciation that once he started going into more competitive aspects of business, finding the difficulty of it. But the opportunities, he had some success stories. It's just like, I think this is relatable for most people. It's just like your success in high school didn't translate as easily as you would expect in college. Having seen a lot of different people, me also being in a personal situation where um, um, I would say you can struggle because like life isn't such a straightforward journey, but like figuring out onwards that what you're gonna do and are you gonna make a difference in yourself is a better strength for character towards achieving goals. Because I hate to say that life isn't as it's not as straightforward as you grew up with, and facing some harsh reality of certain things. But the perseverance does normally, I like to say, correlates to a decent amount of success. Just be the reality of is like not it's not going to be uh, there's going to be people, a handful of people. I'd say I'm not the best person to ask about this. Would hold higher positions of power, so it is a sense of privilege. So okay, let's kind of take this onwards to talk about to where we're going with this. So online, from reading on to certain things from my books, I found that there has been some practical strategy that really enforce the education of making money. I haven't explored this myself, but www.playmoolah.com/about was a good a portion of like people on a team coming together. So young people, maybe in high school and what so, could take a stance of trying to understand the world of business in a more uh, in a kind of like youth targeted manner. The other aspect I would like to say is um, so like there's also like some demo things on trading, but like it's also in a figurative sense. They can kind of give you a play of it, but just as a taster. I wouldn't overly invest this as a kid, thinking that you're unless it's just it's a good way of like kind of giving you an idea what it feels like to be a trader if you use demo accounts trading platforms. I personally don't delve too much into it. I just kind of touch and go myself in loans because I was trying to see if I could make money on loans that I had, and the practicality of it being quite difficult if you're not in that sector. So I cannot stress like highlight in terms of like a more cozy journey for your circumstances in going in lines of these kind of like high risk business communities is entering the right community the best that you can. Okay, so yeah, that's my advice to anyone kind of like talking in lines of this. So one thing I want to understand, like a person's journey can lines to very strong emotions, and one thing I can understand in terms of like taking sympathy is the pain of not having enough for the journey you wanted to take. We can kind of all take a stance of like, when you're in a circumstances that you're desperate in lines of your situation, you are likely to make choices that are radical or unexpected uh, to be able to reach a destination. And for me, that has a more traditional sense of views on certain things. I would say it's like it's I guess because like I take in kins of role models from like well, I would like to project. I like taking steps of seeing people who like to be hold themselves as like manly figures of like personalized like warriors or something like that. But like in terms of like this is how I would love to be like, but like I'm not really. I'm still a human being, and it's like I'm low key at this point, trying to be successful on certain things, waiting for the next step of my journey for like career progression and so uh, not full grasp of understanding was a break coming up and along with projection. So this is fun. I enjoyed it, and I hope anyone else that's following the aspect of what I'm sharing is going to enjoy this as well. Okay, let's get. I like to summarize a good portion of the BBC Maestro resources. All right, this is coming in lines of like experience in the digital platform. He says a good portion of content creation in lines of what you do for your social platform and for video sharing and in relation to stuff like Instagram video sharing, Instagram, Twitter, it's going to be in relation towards finding entertainment sources. So in those lines, the recommendation is to do a certain amount of posts. He liked to recommend an amount of two, and I think it's in lines of like popularity and trends that comes out in thought process. So it's easy number to say people just like, yeah, yeah, okay, we accept that. So it's this is the idea of like I guess like hotkey buzzwords. I don't know what's the other one's a better way of describing it. There's probably better ways of describing what I'm trying to tell you, but like the idea is just like following a trend pattern in regards to certain things. So doing a certain amount of uploads related contents in practicality can be done. But the idea of doing two uploads means the quality kind of decreases as you have to keep generating stuff on a post process. I've seen people do it. It's just been depends of like your energy levels and how much time you invest into something, right? So for me, two related posts would likely be shorts on the popular trend of YouTube shorts, and they have to be skits on like certain things that I find fun, not knowing really the target audience. I think accessibility to games and uploading game contents is a great way to appeal to things. But like you guys have, I guess for me is like the state of mind here is just like what kind of audience am I targeting for this? For right now, I'm just kind of like pushing out a projection of like where my channel is mostly so focused towards, which is movie reviews. If you understand the sentimental attachments in terms of a playful manner of certain things, externalized of the circumstances. Okay, so let's keep going. So generally, he wants to perch out that a lot of people work habits are very important, and some people may overdo certain things. So he comes in lines of staking stance like sleep is generally quite important. Uh, in lines of like their position of where you can need to get things, having good sleep is not worth sacrificing just to get your content created for your circumstances. Everything is contextual, but like he just recommends the idea that you keep in lines of staying healthy when you form yourself and forming your business, which is a big project. Forming a big brand project in terms of practicality and certain things, hoping probably and appealing to consumers. Big project, not easy to do. Very hard. Okay, so there are certain things he wants to talk, and a lot of the certain things he kind of projects are like attitudes, being too stubborn about rigid frameworks or circumstances. But then you got to understand you need a base work because if you go all over the place here and there and now all over the place, the consistency and performances of the work you do is going to like fluctuate. So like I kind of look at this and I can understand it of like saying Um, just don't analyze things like a robot does, right? A robot looks at things in a very clear cut, factual kind of thing between inclusion or exclusion on things. So I guess in terms of like a work habit, he's saying be flexible on how you adopt yourself to be able to find productivity for what you want to do. I'm on a low key basis, so like I get the impression it's just like I need a structure, but I'm not overly rigid because I'm not actually going to be making money from this. Yeah, so yeah. Um, so he also stresses and highlights of the implication of like structured authority. I absolutely and I agree. The management of higher authority to get someone to take action and move in a certain direction, and having managed flag and check if this is an expectation set to the standard of the cultures. So like different companies will have different values and expectations for what the productivity is, and this is comes in line as saying, your company is your identity. Does that make sense? Your identity and what people think of you in terms of the standards or requirement. If they think you're someone of like high caliber in terms of productivity and work ethics, this is the implication of where you say your company helps projects that in your thought process, which comes in the lines of like impressing people in the same community as you or not, right? Companies made the hiring process very extensive for hiring their teams for early Macintosh generating computer generating. Okay, Macintosh is an old brand, I understand. It is important on hiring important figures in the image you want to create in the first hire. So I think he did talk. Oh yeah, so this was interesting. That's why I highlighted it. In lines of like when you form your first brand, and this is not easy again. You need to like find people. If you find some hiring process in lines of people who have a certain amount of already good reputation and as a public figure, and that's how you find success in terms of like fame and what so. Uh, he said like forming the initial. The best way to say is he's trying to say is like on a hiring process, first impression make a difference in terms of the how people are going to make their expectation or company if it's worth paying attention. Remember, you're competing against the market. This is the biggest thing that's going to highlight a lot of things in terms of stressing people. The competition and how do you stand out from it? Okay. So he developed a system structure to hire relevant people for a company that he would feel good for money making. Yes, I agree. You want to be proud of your company because this is who you are. Hiring process is quite interesting to help layers of perspective. They can act on the phase, identify your strength and weakness, and help delegate tasks to relevant workers within your team. Vulnerability also give people a sense of humanizing someone's in a role of higher authority, which can make them approachable. This is a good portion of like where I take a stance for Stephen Barnett's. Things are hard in terms of like reaching high grades in the collegial person. So the humanizing facts was he's had his share of failures, but he's still able to like he has still managed to like find some success with the right guidance and approach. And an act of desperation, knowing that he didn't have much from a very difficult. Like I would never wish this guy to go back to where he was before. That kind of lifestyle sucks for him entirely, and it would be like I wouldn't wish misfortune on someone like that, on someone in that those kind of circumstances. You know what I mean? So that's why it's just like it's good for him to like it's good that it's great to see that kind of successful stance from someone that would have had an unexpected like absolute downfall, like a 180-degree downfall in his life, and managed to get back up. That's kind of like what I want to kind of express project so people understand, right? So this is a great way where people can feel approachable because a lot of us aren't that good, you know. So this is now talking in lines of like digital marketing, click-through rates being highlighted. I also like to say like when I was taking an attachment towards YouTube and to understanding business and that, Mr. Beast talks about when he talks about his popularity of his channel having started like for a long-term process. Like he existed for a long time, but didn't stand out from like our YouTube peaks in popularity from my perspective of biases. He doesn't emphasis that when he looked at content, because he's one of the richest guys out there. click-through rates is being highlighted, and they're on kind of being measured to how the thumbnails bring on their customer. So like he judges things. Now there's obviously other factors, but like Mr. Beast is a good example of like really pushing out his business and YouTube to where he is. And I love his story. His development is just so fucking unexpected and really cool. And it was a gradual process for his reality for like circumstances. But like he's such a good spot. And he also is an example of someone that, uh, started YouTube, got obsessed with the obsession of video sharing and seeing it in the business aspect perspective from where it was at its infancy to now. And like I guess the idea I would like to say is just like he also at some point started college but then saw the opportunity of YouTube making more money and he had to make a choice between the two. There's a reality saying that YouTube he wanted to put his hopes and dreams onto YouTube in terms of thriving in his business. And he's done a really good job. He's gone through a lot of hard time, stressing expectations to reach the success that he has. I can highlight how much I really enjoy hearing about Mr. Brace's journey. Not taking too much attention to it before because I thought he started rich, but he didn't. you know, uh, and in a few years he just became really successful. This is kind of say this is why what I like to say is like these are kind of like role models if you ever thought of like starting a YouTube channel in lines of like forming a practical business of it in terms of this where it states for. Okay, so next, so doing an experimental process by control a variable to be able to make judging a practical online platform is better or not to generate traffic. Don't be afraid of experimentation when trying to set out the goal of your business or goals in life. He says like a good amount of certainty is fleshed out from like sometimes it feels like a flip of a coin. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. To break through if you're going to make a choice or not into something for a real serious tone. When real money is involved, that's quite serious. So this is the sense of like saying people are taking what you're doing seriously, and you can have some real prospect of like high success in those opportunities. Pretty, it's pretty exciting to be able to take a stance and make impact on people who are in positions of very influential. People also taking shortcuts will lead to issues in the future. I can tell you for a fact that we can all appreciate a circumstantial implication of like a Swiss cheese effect. You don't know these things are going to happen, but they slowly snowball, and I'm basically an example of those kind of things in a weird way. Yeah, that's it. So I like to talk about we'll talk about like social platforms, and this is inevitable given that Stephen Barnett is known for his digital marketing and line business things. What social platform do you use? People talk about different video platforms. YouTube being famous, but Vimeo exists, Instagram, Twitter, and again, the unexpected brings in a sense of like catching attention from a distinguishing in terms of a competition. Does that make sense? In terms of competition of branding things, what would stand out is in lines of something unexpected. Setting a trend for that way is the biggest expect that can externalize. But then you need to be able to use that and then push that onwards to further propagate success. Does that make sense? It's not good enough just to have disruption of flow from what people are expecting. How do you carry it out and where it push out externally afterwards is the implication of whether something stays you form long-term success in your opportunities. This is what I like to kind of like project this, right? So these are healthy habits. So this is the idea and the healthy habits of work. And at the same time, I know a lot of people who let work completely take over life. I don't recommend that. Not on a sudden basis, right? I actually would never say anyone to just, as much as you may enjoy work, I would never wish that to completely take over someone's life. I just don't think it's worth it for waste or the direction of life is going these days. Okay, so disruption and marketing in different ways to reach audience are a great way of advocacy and spark conversation between the audience. Thumbnails. Thumbnails are good. They can draw in attentions from different ways. YouTube also used to have an algorithm where thumbnails were highlighted or watch time for the recommended models. These days, I don't know. YouTube's also changing. You gotta understand like these kind of like popularized things change over time. Okay, so disruptive to take attention and so the right people can see it, and you seem higher for by standing up by yourself in conformity. Uh, Being intentional on your time, making related podcast videos and for merchandise. Easy way of doing this for YouTube in terms of like bringing things in your algorithm was reading vlogs. Reading vlogs help people. Reading vlogs are like vlogging was I talk about reading vlogs, but the audio vlogs because I was starting out a project in lines at that. But like uh vlogging was a very easy way that you could post content if you're finding a hard time to like find things to share in a like huge social platform. Just start by doing a vlogging channel about your life and then showing the thing that you're trying to do as you carry yourself in your own journey. Okay. uh Being structured and organized can make a great expectation if you're working with in lines of a if you're working in line with other people, right? Having these deadlines and expectation helps you coordinate and work with people of high quality, right? So that's the other thing. Um, Time blocking. Time blocking. So procrastination from a psychological discomfort may depend on circumstances of the person's bias. So taking small steps instead of trying to take on all of it. No, this is actually I see a lot of people get put off when they see that's the amount of work I need to do, and they just say stop. Take it in small steps. That's the recommendation. So any better work over quality works for success promoting better work habits. These habits build up over time. Do not be afraid of not having all the answers straight away. Just take it in small steps. There's always managing your own anxiety, especially if people are putting a lot of reliance on you. But this can work out in a prospect in the long term for you in terms of your popularity. And if you're and that's going to be great way of like shining out in terms of like forming the right connections, forming the right meeting the right people. What do you call being successful? That's generally is. And this is why I want to understand the biggest line of starting a company now in a market where it's there's a lot of like big tycoon things is brand reputation. For anyone that's starting a personal project, brand reputation is really important. And knowing the practicality of people's habits when they are going in their everyday lives informs of their success and happiness and practicality. So, like the increased using of phones in the modern day, market targets for apps. So, knowing how to commercialize that in that way is a big step. It's outside my forte and rule. I don't have also the money to hire a team and staff for that, so it's very hard, but I've seen the practicality and its success already in lines of someone using apps and phones to be able to advocate themselves in terms of the business to make some opportunities with money. And I'm pretty impressive with it because I wasn't expecting this all of a sudden. But like the biggest implication was like I think he put a good portion of his pride to make this happen, and I'm seeing his success, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm watching his progress, and this is in a different community, not within the business section. So I can respect that. I can look at that and say that's actually a good direction of where I was going to try to do for a side hustle with some difficulties and practicality for my reality. um, so knowing people's habits of like where they do what they look at, and phones is a big impression I want to say in terms of like entertainment for people who are putting their attention on things. Accessibility to advertise yourself through phone in a digital age is a big deal. Authority helps place loyal customers into buying products. Authority also helps increase level of trust in purchasing the product. They had fun with things, and things that make them excited. So this is kind of like the lines of entertainment and feeling a good connection of like externalization to be able to like generate uh, enjoyment and excitement. So movie theaters help stir up drama. Anyone who's like me watch films and I've down a deep attachment to like uh connecting in ways with people from good recommendations and all that. Movies help stir up drama with communities and bring in proportions of like getting people to feel to interact with themselves in that manner. I'm a huge fan of it because like movies generate story or are generate for a lot of stories and story building and different contextual things in lines of like where our culture and where our people where we are where we're going as people. They bring out so much ways of enjoying things in life in terms of like the future or expectation things. Like I feel like a good portion of my joie de vivre comes from the like influences from books and films when I was watching as a kid, hoping that I one someday I would have that kind of experience myself or something in similar lines of my expectation. So like they drive culture. They are definitely something that drives culture from where we are. Um, so yeah, you need a lot of backing, a lot of financial direction for where money is led right now, and consistencies in direction is not being afraid to be different from an expected crowd to be able to be compounding, which I cannot. I'm not sure about compounding. It's something you might have to look up. Inefficient in time is costly for business writing trends. So being able to like write trends is a big portion of trend jacking to for existing business models and not being afraid of having failures. So this is another issue because trend jacking also has temporarily feels towards it. Well, what to say is it's like there's a lot of things that will become popular and then they drop down. And then when they drop down, that's kind of like their business opportunities and prospect of like success, you know, they go down as well. So you need to take risks basically, and you need to put money in there to be able to see that these opportunities are going to come or not for you. Learning how to fish to be able to keep up with the peak of the market is for your business instead of determined behavior, and posting more to gradually maintain your audience. Doing self-vlog again is my recommendation in lines of like what I thought in terms of YouTube strategies when it comes to advocating and starting your own channel. Uh, People need to feel invested in you somehow, right? I've seen a few, and I can tell you like it's hard to pick out anything that stands out in lines of like why you want to pay attention to this person or not in terms of their vlogging skills, right? And I feel like a good portion is like touch points, which I read in book. The way you can interact with your community and make the community resonate with you. And this is the unexpected, you can kind of say. So like normally you wouldn't be normally someone it's it's easier for people to want to keep connected with people at a top hierarchy. It's harder to see make the appreciate someone higher to make a touch point with someone of a lower uh, hierarchy. And again, it also is interpreted in reason and implication of what's interpreted, right? So you know, it's just like I guess like a good action and Samaritan work. But then you got to be careful as well because you know I've met a lot of people when you've reached out their hand and they took it and they did it incorrectly in terms of what you were expecting. They didn't align with your ideology, your slogan, what you stood for, right? This is why Chaco says companies need to have some way of distinguishing who you are because not all of us want to invest in certain cultures that promote things in lines of, well, you know, that gives us a spread. You can't spread yourself too thinly. There's certain cultures that you feel like it's not a good idea for you to overly invest in because they're deconstructive for where you put your time and what you're trying to ideologically push out in opportunities. Yeah. Okay. So moving on from there. All right. So like I go to stress out about other stuff like I think I was coming lines because there was experimental platform for you to test these things. However, I would hold off anybody to like kind of like overly invest in these kind of like digital things because if you put too much time in these digital assets, the end reward doesn't feel great. It's easy to say like put some skin into it, but then if you're not in business and finance, I can understand that being something that you don't want to do, right? So just try it. Just try it. If you want to try something. These kind of like experimental platforms are kind of cool. Amazon also built some success in lines of phones from like A9.com, from 5phone.com. So Amazon's big deal company. So obviously they're gonna have a lot of like branches of like branding things. So like it's kind of I kind of feel like they've done such a good job at this point that they're always going to be have a domain in most forms of like communities that are popularized whatso. Okay. So let's go on to talk about making an individual decision based on your skill in writing. Before letting group mentality, try to shift your thought process so you can compare to see if action takes place comes in lines of your insight, or has group mentality created the bar of for set expectation of which work values could be pushed. Asking relevant questions and appropriate that may unexpected when trying to find the quality of a hiring process for company brands you want an image to form around, which would extend onwards to other following employees. Appealing to curiosity is a great place to help drive people take initiative into action. Getting them to feel enjoying interacting with you is a good way of like people having fun. It's just communication and basic skills, just like uh yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to say. It's just like it's stimulating, it's stimulating because it shows that you are going into an environment and trying to like stand out and feel successful. You're kind of like competing, right? It's just like you're showing these kind of like expected notions of like of of being able to fit in, and can you take the necessary steps to stand out even more, which is not something easy, especially if you got a lot of sharks. All right, so capital investment. Having a senior guide you is a big step, and he said it's a good direction of where he found his success, right? So having a senior you like is giving you direction, and there are other things you can try, but like for in terms, especially with starting a business, I do not recommend you do this on a whim. You always start small and then progressively build up your amount of risk that you're going to take on things to get your business things. Like if you want, that's why I say leverage sounds juicy and exciting to me because there's the whole notion of like putting a risk onto it, something in a trade with high risk of rewards. But it's like how much confidence interval do you feel like this is going to go the way that you expect it? It's kind of like having good insight, which is showing intelligence, in predictive behavior. Okay, so taking loans from banks for selling assets that you exist don't use. This is the idea of recycling. I've trying to embark projects on lines of doing that. Where I'm having a bit of problems with the platform, not really understanding what I'm doing. So like this is kind of where I'm going to push out the next content for my hustle videos, selling recycled materials. Worth having a go, I guess, and finding a good investor to guide you for your business. Again, this is a good portion of like if you really want to appeal to someone, knowing who you want to be your leader is a big deal. Um, okay, so this is where we can take a line. So remember that the long-term investors are leaders, and do you want to be a leader? Because an investor is going to be where most people are going to put their pivot in there in terms of their life and success onto. Uh, Investors are different from traders as well. I think investors are more in terms of developing long-term connections for the prospect because they also get good opportunities for that. Where a company kind of leads into the opportunities for investments to come in, I don't know. This is kind of like a huge gravitated process. I'm just starting to journey on a figurative aspect because of an externalized, popularized things that I feel are I don't really want to go into too much detail. Let's just say that in terms of like overpropagation of their things, and let's just move forward because like how that has led on. Actually, I'm very against. I didn't like the huge amount of culture breaks for the expectations of like they kind of show events of disrespect in the seniority and communities. So who's to say what is right? That's already done. Um, so being careful on making deals in relation to companies writing in fine print to avoid litigations for potential active business progression. Understanding good interactions is the same idea of understanding a good conversation where both parties felt that they were left after and showed was prospect and good relations for the progression of business. Developing trust is the biggest thing that anybody can tell you in terms of functional relationship. And there's another book that I can like make a recommendation in terms of like talking in lines of like I'm reading it still, and it talks about in lines of forming good connections with people so people want to come into, and this is the biggest thing, you need to make people feel good, uh, that they can interact with you because like the world is not just about you, the world is about everyone and who you want to bring up and who you want to who what kind of like habits you want people to develop into for the future and like opportunities to give opportunities because again the cold reality is like life is not necessarily always fair. So what do people do in regards to like circumstances where they say just like you know, if I was not born the right way or something like that, would I have the same opportunities and chances as someone else? Big question. Sorry. uh, okay, so be a good salesman, and this is a kind of like a performance thing as well. I like to make the analogy. Being a good salesman does show that you need to be able to show your wit in conversational basis, and this may also need to show a different amount of like approach and proceedings to be able to like get to know people and who they are and their respects for their success. You know, high quality men, I like to say. So charisma is my equivalent of saying showman, right? People want to invest in people that they can trust for development, and they can disagree with stats implication to be honest, maybe not bombarded with them with those figures at the start. Talking about the investors that you think are role models that will help template what kind of business you want to go into. Set records to make invitations to appeal to your company. Keep saying. So this is the deal. As I can make that appreciation. This is on a different scale, but like the whole implication of when you're applying for part-time jobs and all that. I know it's daunting. I know that you can send a whole bunch of lists and get a lot of rejection. I know that feeling. Start by looking for support services, which is the direction I went to. But like, I'd like to say that my case is not shouldn't be the exemplified example for most normal people because I have a bit of a awkward situation. So because of my situation, of because of the circumstances that I am. But I can understand the frustration and of dealing with a lot of rejections for where you think you should be easily be getting work or not. Okay, keep saying it as most investors may not have the time to pay attention to you. Yeah, that's right. Most investors may not have attention. Investing conventions where they will likely be an intermediate that has more time to pay attention to you. So go to settings where they're going to be in that mind process of like where they're looking for recruitments. Do your research, join societies, join clubs, and all that in relation to this, and get the info to structure yourself. This is a good pathway for success. I can't stress how much I like people who are in love with their journey. Currently, podcasts focus on self motivation and character development that may be necessary in relation to projected business models. Inference are made on the bias of content creation for themes and memes for my channel, representation to freeze, but it is not linked to official production, which has made it clear. Uh, yeah. So sorry, I have a content channel, as you know. I've been still um, working on the freeze, but it's not linked on an externalized based on large production value. And I'm very grateful for the production. I can't wait to watch their upcoming movies. I hope them all the best of success because like it's already hit a great feeling on me because I was someone that was going for a very hard time in stress circumstances, and there's a great way of like expressing externalizing gratitude in something that was unexpected to where it led on. But the event's already done. So these are ghost stories. I mean, I shared this already on my Instagram posts online of me externalizing feelings and going out of the way, like looking forward to watch that film by to the point where I would take the bus to go there, and then like go for the ticket and like finish watching the film, and then that was the only time slot I could get, and then not minding staying up all night, just to wait for the first train and to come back, and like that, how much I I had so much gratitude. I was so excited to see something conceptualized that was something personal of myself, and it was internet propaganda in the big screen theaters. This is a big deal for me, you know. And the movie, I shared a lot of attachment towards a lot of people. I just hope the movie showed a good portion of good healthy attachments for the right people, I think, and I what the right people are able to push forward in their success in life. You know, I've seen already some things that I'm really impressed by. INC seems to be appeal on customer based on emotion felt from customers. Relatability is a good portion of it again, right? Are you relatable? Packaging marketing for storytelling. He believes brand recognition is recognized for trust developed for the public, which in relation to storytellers, which push opportunities to start businesses. Push out until of the origin, people can emphasize was having a good foundation to when people can group together, and this helps forms group behavior, modulating behavior. This is interesting. right? People are independently forming their groups and forming ideas of like how they're going to modulate to get uh, to carry out influence. Influence is generally power. Team orientation can be a bit different, a bit difficult, but like that's the whole prospect of like the idea of the in lines of competitions and what. So, setting a goal for objectives for your plans, making people want to interact with you as your ambitions, plans, or not, helping build bridges through experimentation. If you put yourself out there, an example and a drawback. Okay, so it's talking about drives for motivation. Making potential money is always a good lead to this. We're all motivated by money, right? This is the reality of life. If you want success in an externalized way, knowing how to make money is a good direction of like carrying this influence that you're going to be able to do that. Explore the attitude of failures in large problems here where humanity can be put at risk of relating to social positions. Yes, that's true. In high risk and high position of powers, if your authority is put into question, you can lose a lot stance of influence and ability, and it can hurt you a lot. But like if you are, this will test your character and how much of a leader you are. Again, this is a book that I read that comes down of like distinguishing what authority really is. uh, I I am going to probably finish reading that book later on. And I liked it, yeah. I really liked it. Explore risk of consequence when analyzing your results when trying to strategy plan. It's not criticize related to reviewing for P seniors. Again, having a good senior to help you make decisions can give so much confidence into someone, especially if you're not used to it and you have to play with big fishes and you're not confident in it. Because you know they can bite and grab you out there for whatever you've worked out in life. So like that can hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Um, Critiques who have no skin in the games, alternatives are giving critique relating to their actions, can give an honest opinion about your strategies relating problems relating to how much insight they have. It is able to seek some form of validation by the senior as well collective for give guidance. That is that protection I gotta say. Having someone that you like lead you is a good portion of where I also felt the direction of what would be recommended for my direction. Having some unfortunate backlash on some realities, but I'm not gonna go into that much detail. I'm just gonna focus on like my side projects where we're at right now. Yeah. So yeah. So understand how much investors should put into your money to make money. That's what I mean. Putting skin in the game means you're willing to put money into someone. Big deal. Knowing when to commit to their plans, to finding success in their plans, each perspective is a cognitive error in their process. This is inevitable. This upbringing and all that. We're all people that are different, and we all try to fit in different ways. You're gonna have cognitive bias, and that's completely fair. If you're successful, people are gonna trust that cognitive bias. They're gonna take a stance of like aligning with your thought process that these people are gonna behave as expected, and and that's what I mean. If you're a leader, you know who to pull up and you know who to keep down, right? And like you don't want people who are gonna destroy the model of your framework of your company up because they're gonna like complete and utterly like break thing. They're gonna like affect moral and mentality. Okay, so okay, let's talk about his drive to make money was to fit in. So like I'd like to now talk a bit more about the background of Stephen Barrett as a fair externalization of certain things. So I've already said it a bit, but like he did come from a family that was of working class, and he was in a business setting family, uh, but he had struggled with aspects of like later further on further education, which is understandable when you've had formed some sort of success in school. Uh, as I said before, it's difficult. I feel the descendants of like over propagating his story, but what he did onwards after failure is what a good show of character of someone that's, it's not gonna uh, let the fact that he felt like a loser for a very long time uh, stop him from still seeking ways where he could find success. And for that, everyone can agree it's kind of like a stance of saying um, we can we can appreciate that uh, we can appreciate the pain that he felt. I think that's the best way. We can all appreciate the pain that he felt at the time. We have different opinions related towards education and completion or not, especially in these modern days. And I feel like if you to make it easier in terms of fitting in with elitists, generally that's the impression. If you don't keep making an impression against elitists, they're going to keep you down, in my opinion. And I think that's the implication of saying, can you, yeah, that's it. If you're not able to fit in with the elitists for the circumstances that you're in, then they're gonna keep making it hard. So your life is actually gonna keep being difficult. You have to keep impressing people. You have to keep doing stuff to like, so like, I would recommend you try to fit it. Sorry. Yeah. So like I like to say this is a good portion of saying where I found enjoying using his templates resources. I would I don't recommend anyone to overly invest in this because they're nice tips, but they're like also what I like to say is like the implication of me purchasing it more comes in lines of like accountability. But like for anyone that's like actually going into business models and all that, you know, sentimental attachments of like where he is because he's still a leader in the digital age for leadership in terms of the implication of like where business models are projected. We're never going to be at a point where we go back from not having technology form expectation for what you want to do, but like you know, this is where I can take a stance with people to take a lines of saying like um, when you purchase this, I don't want everyone to think this is the best way of like it's worth your money. As someone that's working class in a very difficult position right now, I don't want you guys to overly invest in this resources in terms of like watching it and hoping to get too much out of it for your buck. And I don't say that in a mean way. A good portion of its influence is watching Dragon Den, and I would recommend you also if you are looking to like start a business and see how professionals hold themselves, you know, this is a good direction. This video is okay. I definitely think with the addition of like what I could like push out in terms of my content, would say that it had hit me in the right moments near the end. Starting out was okay, simplified. Near the end was really where it hit me well. It's just like I felt good, even though I felt purchasing the product was okay. So like I want to say like the biggest thing that you should understand is that what was hope and set forward in the direction was that he wanted to show the direction of his success is also as an exemplary to show that um, you can make it. You can make it even if you're at the complete bottom, right? I think the notion is like to say, don't give up. I think that was the impression of like what was set for an example in terms of emotional projection in lines of his success currently is like they wanted someone that wasn't going to give up, and they wanted someone that was going to show that you could make huge mistakes in life, but you can still find success if you know and you're willing to make the changes necessary for it. To conclude this BBC Maestro implication. Okay, so here's our things that I would like to talk about in terms of finding your company, just to finalize where I took a stance of like my analysis. A good slogan in lines of advertisement, because this is a good portion of like Stephen Barnett's business, from what I understand, Dragonlance. Having a good slogan to build in lines of your thought process. And I'm going to leave it as that. Okay, that's it. Anything else, that's just gonna like leave it on the ground. Thank you very much. I kind of like fleshing out the whole impression expression of having purchased BBC Maestro in relation to learning how would I do a figurative business on an externalized meme over French overly done. I hope you guys enjoyed me doing this summary, and yeah, thank you for your time. About is branding. This chapter is about branding, and I'm gonna circumvise the video so you guys can see. Thank you. Experiment is not too bad. Of 90 people, 20% buys it. I don't know if that's considered a success in the measure of a preliminary thing or not. But it convinced what it talks about in terms of like brand awareness to brand purchase. BAR being brand advocacy. So this is like how brand this is how much customers would go out to eventually recommend this brand, and that's even lower the expectation. I don't know if that's exemplified. Read more about some different experimentation in terms of brand product things in lines of your field, right? So if you're selling shoe markets, this is the idea of measuring up similar companies, but then going to the specific stats to say which one stands out more, right? I don't do that, So I guess sale receipts are a good portion. So it's like it has to be a control asset, right? So this like experimentation comes on to this. So that's what it is, right? So nine spontaneously recommended blend. That's like 1/10, right? So like 0.02%. No, that's a different figure. Sorry. So like 90 of it, 9 recommends the brand. So you can expect actually figures to be quite low of people who buy it. So the attention span isn't overly focused on this. Does that make sense? When people go into these things, not everyone pays attention to that much detail to it. But it is important for us as marketeers trying to develop strategies because we want to make a brand stand out. So I need to kind of get that specific detail. So these things come in line of like that's how I come having huge interest in it because this is what generally is the basis of like how I would kind of push forward on these things. So yeah, it's interesting, right? So I can actually expect purchases even from a popular product. So say it's like say we do keychains as an example or toys that was mentioned. Families would buy it, but in terms of translating it towards the brand towards it on something that they've never seen or they don't know, the implication is what you call. You can expect that an unknown brand to have relatively low stats at the start, unless you proactively do uh, things that engages customers with brand translation to customer interaction. I am so interested in figuring out those things. So return on equity. Okay. This is the measurement of how much a company generates with equity shareholders that have invested. It helps shareholders keep track of productivity of their money. This is going too much in detail. I'm never going to get to that point before that stats for the purpose of where I kind of exploring the concept of wanting to generate a brand from ongoing related themes that started kind of like a joke. So again, measurement return on marketing investments comes in lines with advertisement. Advertisement being a huge key point of this. And there was something else that I read that comes in lines of market growth in that kind of sense. Yes, sir. Advocacy. People talking about it and recommending it is the growth of a brand, which generally comes in lines of companies' perspective on things. So you are interested in the sales, who actually bought it. You get that from an advocacy. Because like some people can just want to advocacy, which I feel is a weird stat. If you go by the implication, most people would first buy something, right? And then the lower stats. I feel right now we're going for more advocacy, but no one buying. Oh, we got backwards. Leverage is very exciting to me. Customer conversation provides leverage. It is essentially a low-cost way to build awareness without relying too much on advertisement. Oh, what does that mean? It comes with risk. Customer conversations is notorious wide. Companies cannot directly control the content, so it's a hard strategy for my take implication. In a digital age where customer conversion or other influence is equivalent by depth, or advertising in outer influence is equivalent to equity. This is hard for me to understand and contextualize, actually. So, like, do they talk about in a digital age, generally anticipation of people engaging with a particular brand conversion to advertisement, which is outer influence. So can you go from can you generate a high amount of BRA, which is this is hard for the brand advocacy ratios. Is that what it means? It's kind of like better to have a marketing expert kind of like explain this right now. But like a BRA, brand conversion ratios. No, it's kind of hard to figure this out. Is this the idea of like generating people to talk more in comparison to advertisement? I need someone to kind of like fact check this in my head because like I'm reading it, I don't get it. Conversion is favorable, it amplifies brand equity. But when it is not, it damages the brand. When the conversion is favorable, it amplifies the brand equity. But when it's not, it damages the brand. That's what it is. So when conversion is variable in terms of like conversation instigated without influences from advertisements. Advertisements can have negative effects on certain biases on certain things. I think that's what it is right now. So it provides leverage because it's risk to the original brand. So like what it comes down to is just like initiating conversation without needing to rely too much on advertisement is a risky process because that process may not necessarily lead to brand conversion points. I think that's what it means. That's what it comes. It's actually very hard to do that. You know, I can understand like companies drifting away from that kind of strategy. Actually, it's very like there's a lot of potential problems, right? Brands must run advertising campaigns to avoid the risk of being highly leveraged. Yeah. So if you know what leverage is, look it up because it's a high risk, high reward thing. Critical touch points, right? So this is talking about like interactions with brand and customer. And again, that's what it is. The brands want to build a positive relationship with the people. And you can see when someone cares, right? We are at an age, this book talks about an appeal to any brand. We are in an age where digital influx, which I told you before, reduce the necessity of emotional attachments to certain things comes in lines because it's less necessary. Uh, the customers are looking for human-centric brands whose characters resemble those of human people interacting with customers as equal friends. This is less emphasized in digital business, why I kind of understand it for brands are practicing marketing 3.0. This is interesting enough to me want to check out marketing 3.0. Again, like provide feel good factors for customer. A brand like the Body Shop is delivering social cultural transformation. Part of reality. This is where we talk about referring back to brand advocacy ratios, and this comes in lines of being a score close to 1. Every customer who is aware of a brand eventually recommends the brand. But in a rule, a perfect BRA recommendation of 1 normally never occurs. Yeah, that's it. More often, a certain proportion of customers drop out and does not complete the entire 5 days. Ow, dude, come on! Alright. Points where you instance marketing strategies that interact between brand and customer. And this is where we talk about measurements of how brand attachment to a product brings the customers to want to buy something, measuring on a ratio thing. There's more in detail in the book. I might talk about it a bit later, right? So again, I want you guys to all see what I'm reading, and I love it. I love it so much. So again, we can go in very specific detail on these things. Position of some things when we talk about unfortunately in industries where you're trying to make money and you know there's a competitive side. So in competition is tight, customers are generally unwilling to recommend competing brands, since there is almost no effect of word of mouth pull in such industries, and competing brands have to work hard to push the product and service to the market. Since the key success factor is sales force management productive sales and driving the right sale activity. No groups are by means static, so technological convergence and disruptive innovation. So in the large scale things, for business technologies has helped lower the barriers from normally access to communications in lines of like really big high tech. Uh, I would say like high influential marketing or high influential marketing contexts. Even it might implication of like whether you see a consultant or not in the relation of your presenting your case studies. Normally they would, right? You may see it under rotation. They may tell you to do a few things, and you may sit in it for like clicks for analysis. Now, is that too much in detail in relation to your assessment? Yes, sometimes it is. I'm not going to go in detail about that. The translation of exposure of like the real life clinical setting of like your as a student to the conversion of like practicality of an exam. I feel like it's that should have its own sector within the clinical aspects. Those managing their jobs, and then those focusing on the aspects of assessment basis, because they're not. For me, it's like there's a lot to do. You're focusing your own job. If you can take on more tasks, then you can do it. But like if it's not done well, you need more help. Because like a lot of times I felt like there was some potential thing that was suggested in terms of schedule, and there was a regiment animation for requirements of like students seeing or attending certain things, and then sometimes they would fall through. So it's just like, there's I feel maybe they need to hire more people on subspecialty sections in relation to that. From my perspective of like a bit, it's a bit messy. It's very messy in terms of the clinical and student preparation, what the examiners want students to do, and if they do it or do they rely on like teaching resources or whatsoever. But like generally, you know, most of the times, if you're just a student, consultants don't put much attention to you. So like they'll say present your case, and then their teams will you get distributed in their teams to do certain things that are expected for the rotation for signing off and what's up. Uh, okay, let's talk about the relation to like so competing brands do have to work hard to push their products and services to the market. The key success here is sales force management, managing productive sale people and driving the right sale activity. I think that was the main thing. I guess in terms of communications in lines of technology advances is just because I would say informations about the people, what they publish about their works uh, is more accessible. And if you take a chance to connect to this, it's actually a very good way of showing interest into someone. And what's the word I'm looking for? Um, it's it's a strategy. It's a charismatic strategy to show an interest in a person's work and what they do. And if you can add value to that in whatever their interest is, so it's just like knowing who you should be focusing your attention to impress, knowing who you're going to put your time to invest into something. Does that make sense? So that's a good drive of like doing your research and preparing. Like those pitches you see. Like I'm gonna do reviews related to Dragon Dance and how they analyze certain products and things, and like pick up some of the marketing lingos as well, because it's generally fun since I'm in that kind of position right now where I was trying to make it understand. It's just like how do you convert fame to some form of essential value, success, and product values of like marketing, basically branding. That's the biggest thing. How do you convert? I think I don't know what the fuck problems have already occurred to things that I would never have be able to like analyze regardless. I'm just talking about my own circumstances situation. So that's the best thing to say. But like in terms of like my own efforts and work products, uh, the conversion in relation to this is like I need to focus on establishing where the existing name can convert to a brand, a branding for something that comes in lines with my bias or website. So yeah, that's quite a thing. Marketers need to keep an eye on the shifts of this related accordingly. Burning in different industries. The idea of a 5A framework is kind of funny. That probably is my sales pitch. That would be my sales pitch to the PwC, I guess. But it could have been better. I'm not gonna lie. The 5A's was an ongoing process. Was unfortunate ignorance of the kind of realization that it is like I'm not a fan of stereotyping Asian upbringing. I'm gonna say this like straight up, you know. um, I think you should let your kids develop themselves and understand and make their journey and get attached to thinking for themselves what they want and find their success. Don't do that just because your parent told you to do it because like the end of the day, like where you're gonna get life satisfaction and enjoyment is gonna be from your how you decide to go around your life. And I'd say like there are failures, and like that's about it, you know. I can't really go into detail, you know. That's it, you know. Yes, the Society of Grown-Ups is an example. The empathetic research conducted by Mass Mutuals and IDO discovered the latent anxiety of the desire of millennials to become more financially literate. I'm sorry. The Mass Mutual and IDO then developed the Society of Grown-Ups of companies that provide financial education specifically for millennials. It provides in-person classes and financial advice sessions in a cool, relaxed, and a non-intimidating space that resembles a coffee shop. It provides stylish digital tools for millennials to use to plan for finance. And usually aims financial planning to grow millennial socials and digital services. I would like to see that. That's hilarious. I absolutely think that's funny as fuck. Enjoy the framework required, they taking the content, the aspects of understanding brands in the funnel category and managing multiple touch points for advertisements, such as aware, appeal, ask, and act, and advocate. So advertisement being aware and appeal, website and call centers for ask. So the availability of like customers being able to interact with the product they see after advertisement, and sales acting, as well as post-purchase activity being for an advocate. This shit is awesome. I'm not gonna lie. I gotta go. Sorry. Example, and I was like, I'll give it to him. Steve Jobs is a good iconic figure for brand marketing, where people can associate Apple with likability, in lines of like transparency of brand conversion with transparency. Elon Musk is all, but like we're not talking about Miss Boss apparently. See, according to this, for possible company's intervention to increase conversion rate comes in lines of this thing: an attraction appeal, curiosity of a product that they may not tell. So don't tell everything about something. Show them, not tell them. The idea of some video vlogs, if you talk about certain things, strategies, commitment, the ratio of acting versus asking. They all kind of like advocate on certain things and putting on A's, talking about these kind of like things. And then affinity, to advocate, to act. Repositioning, market communication, community marketing, content marketing, channel management, sales force. This can go into a lot of detail. I'm really enjoying just like exploring the concept of it. Productivity, that's gonna be hard. It's very interesting. It's basically putting a lot of risk onto a point, an attachment on you think an association coming into it and funneling that. That's the idea of funneling from it. Get it correct, huge brownie points. Get it wrong, revenue may be off. So it's exciting to see how you think people are going to move in terms of the decision making when it comes down to buying something. Just talk about the market. It's really interesting. It talks about industries where they distinguish between low risk purchases with low price points and high purchase frequencies. So I can think of an example. Come in minds and lines of talking about something that's easy to buy and used frequently. Food. Food snacks. That's the first spot in my head in terms of like low price points but high frequency. People like to munch. I go to work, go to a lecture, I buy a few snacks locally at a cafe. What's up? So that's a kind of like implication of a simpler and shorter customer path. On the other hand, the industry with high purchase typically has a high customer involvement and therefore a more complex, longer customer pathway. Those can be huge investments in making huge decisions. For me, learning resources for practice exam papers, they require this. The purchases are quite costly. They're very intimidating for anyone of a lower social economic group. And then the commitment that you need to put into using these practice resources can be kind of exhausting. So that's one aspect of something that I can give an example of a high purchase risk with high customer involvement, therefore a more complex, longer customer path. The same industry also exhibit different customer path patterns in different geographic markets. Just because you know your target audience of what you apply for these things, people are still very and like their purchase history. Sorry, there's something that hit me really warm. But their purchase histories are a good characterizations of like their personalities, of the things they liked and the things that they do for relaxing moments. So obtaining a personalized customer brand, you would look into their buying history. Oh, sorry, that's so good. Oh God. Oh shoot, that was so badass. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. uh, so it's interesting because like everyone's purchase histories are very different. So like again, it's like what is it that you're trying to achieve on making a product and design? What is your target audience, and what is it that you hope to get from that, right? So like it can like we said, foundations of a brand builds on characterization. Can they see a person's identity in it, and can they like and come across it? A lot of it is comes in terms of relativity. No, sorry. What's the word? Can they? The word is Are they relatable? Are they relatable people? Do you see them as perfect beings, or do you see them as someone's that are average people that are trying to make themselves stand out in some ways? All right, so the book is kind of interesting. It talks about humanizing brand, and in general, for a business like what I am doing, an entertainment channel, trying to reach into product later on, linking to the implication of like related, ongoing, externalized memes. That's quiet down. I want to know how is the foundation would be if I were to make a product. This is the game plan without putting into detail in relation to actually practically doing it, because funding and a team, which are not the sort of things I have available. But I really enjoy going into depth of like reading about business, and I have also taken the incorporation of including Stephen Barnett's sources as well. So there are things that are come highlighted. I'll get to it later on. But first, let's talk about some of these quotes these books kind of talk about, and it really resonates soundly when I comment lines of developing a brand already being a point of like where we come across of being hard to enter a vertical market, but like very easy to develop on a horizontal basis. So I talk about Wills Carlston, who has a known reputation of using human touch to engage with customers. The other aspect is like making a purchase, which is what we count in terms of figure, is great. But for developing customer loyalty, it comes lines of saying post gratification after the customers has already bought the item. So this thing is not really explored here because it emphasizes more on connectivity with producers to customers. I don't know if vertical business make a huge effort to do that. It's just too much energy. I would have to hire a different staff in relation to that when it corresponds to process satisfaction. But a lot of clothing brands do this, giving you loyalty points, and I talked about Starbucks already. But the certain aspects such as what you call post-purchase experiences. Uh, the actual project enjoyment and service experience marketers may add customer engagement programs. Brands are humanizing. The idea is like they can see a brand and a figure. And a greatest example for me, in my perspective, is Elon Musk. Unfortunately, I first came across Elon Musk on by word, but also later on seeing videos of his backstory relating to the development of his companies, having failed a few times, particular space projects where he wanted to build something in correlation to going to outer space. Messed up a lot. A very costly business. He's been involved in a lot of different things. He's always been pushing out the opportunities. And I think, as most people say, and I also have a huge emotional bias towards it, not trying to stir anything further. Actually, illness has quieted down my life for me, and I actually feel like he's kind of like gotten to a point where he can just enjoy life, knows the responsibility, and always acts in a manner that's responsible while getting rewards in his own circumstances. And like that's no one else's business. What he wants to publish in public, he gets published. There's also controversies in everyone's stories. So I'm not. This is not about Elon Musk though. Generally, this is one example I want to talk about brand humanizing versus customer engagement becoming important. A lot of people like the story with Elon Musk leading on to the attachment of Tesla. I also, particularly with dogs, implying when I entered the cryptocurrency market, uh, had a very sentimental implication of like not really understanding investing, but in actuality, crypto is more trading. Trading is a different category altogether, so we're not going there. We're talking now long-term investments of businesses, and well, they are generally. This doesn't talk about it because they're kind of senior partnerships. So engagements to like how they distribute funds to build up opportunities wherever they are under is a big implication and step. So what I think it stands up understanding is like, in a business perspective, how much engagement do they have with companies? So I kind of take the stance of saying, first, for social media, one of the things that is very easy about social media is there's a less need for face-to-face interaction, which means that they can regulate their emotional attachment to things, not personalizing things, and they don't focus on the human aspect, more on a large production faculty line. That's why I try to take about it. So communication from instant message and social media tools also becomes easy for people. It's a great way to getting word across and message across about popular brand that's coming out in lines. For example, and also being emotionally attached to people is very straining and demanding on a person. You can't spread yourself too thin, you will burn out. This happens a lot. I can talk from experience on certain things, on expectations of what I would have been in my career. um, so let's move on about that, right? So a good example is sport company JD Power revealed that 67% of U.S. customers have a company's social media for servicing purposes. Another approach to build engagement or enjoyment process is for gratifications. And this is where I talk about the enjoyment for a target audience, for a younger audience, when it comes down to the implication of making an active business on things that I would have already built up on my side. So in terms of like what would kids love to do to play with games or something like that. Games being one of them, but like I'm not talking about the long prospect of that, but more on a point of like engaging with something that's mainstream or popular in a very hypothetical situation. We are just talking about theory. So if we talk about experimentation things, all these is come in line of science. And we talk about these things in lines of like a null hypothesis. Is there a link between this and that? So there are certain things we don't need to go into detail. I'm also very what do you call rusty on some of the details and aspects to make a link between an experiment, proving out the result being a correlation between two factors, right? So let's stop that. Okay, I wanted to really explore that. It seems this place in Rose Carlton. There's another thing that shows engagement in companies that just really enjoy the finance industry. Walgreens engages customers for gratification, integrated with activity trackers. Walgreens apps. This is the way forward. So anybody that's like building a brand from scratch will tell you like phone usage from like children in a leisure setting. I'm going to say this in a leisure setting has a lot of enjoyment for young people. In those circumstances, there is a sense of like acting about using apps relating to faster gratification and enjoyment in relation to healthy in relation to activities. But the ads can be used in different ways. If I were to start a brand and I had the resources, would consider the phone implication on lines of like modulating. Most people have phones. iPhones are so popular now these days, right? So this is my implication of like developing. Well, I would have to build a base for development for an app for a brand. What kind of brand is it? I'm an entertainment video. I produce entertainment videos in relation to creative projects and like to give it a bit of a touch on skills and methodology being a strong enjoyment of theoretical stuff. It's a great way to flex in their domain to show that you're a man, in my opinion, and like it's like how we kind of duel in certain things. I feel like that's a good whole implication of it, anyways. Um, so I really like this. It's OCBC Bank is in collaboration with Play Moolah, which teaches children to have smart financial decisions with the use of games. This is one great way of like instilling youth cultures into doing more activities. And I've seen a lot of opportunities. Like I'm not 100% funded, but I see opportunities. Like I was reading through this book, and lines of talking about volunteering experiences that can lead to possible rewards, competitions that are accessible. Let's not talk about my circumstances. It's very hard. Again, starting a brand from scratch from this implication on my foundations would be hard. But I know the market, the method market that I would be approaching. And yes, it is social media. For anyone in the digital market area, um, in terms of like where would I say that comes lines to understanding? But what I understand is like ethnography is the implication of like research related to qualitative social media research. So like not such much as a over focus of like the quantity of success you have, but the quality of the social interaction. And ethnography probably comes in lines better for like the initial step of development for brand development for the initial for brand development at the start, because like you're always going to enter a competitive market. So how do you develop this into a better uh, dispute? Give me a second. Yeah, sorry. I thought this is interesting. This is a concept theme in a digital market that kind of like focus on different social aspects of interactions. Right. This is kind of like the implication of like customers are more comfortable and open to tell their fellow customers what they think and do. So like within groups, they would talk within their circles what they want to do. But the natural conversion of a customer's own environment to help them articulate their deepest anxiety and desire. This is the idea of like, no one is like you kind of have to find a group and they kind of have to like, what does it mean? So the best way of saying it is just like people move in bases as groups, right? And their behavior would be modeled on their discussion on certain things that are kind of lively and live in nature. Does that make sense? Some stuff that are live that people can interact with for whatever their bias is. So knowing your target audience is a good way, and then knowing your target audience is a good way of approaching it in the lines of like uh, understanding who you want to extract information to be able to model the behavior because they're not necessarily going to tell you that. Does that make sense? Yeah, that is the best way of putting it down, I think. I will talk more about netnography now. So already this is developed by Robert Koznitz, and he did a lot of research related to that. It comes times of like again, it's not so much difference in how people interact externally, but like we are going into a digital age. I've been kind of like pushing myself away from that of getting too absorbed in it, being a netizen. But that would be another part of where I would explore myself, particularly since my product branding of entertainment is on the internet right now, rather than doing direct performances, which I'm more hesitant because I would need to do more direct interaction. But like, so they kind of talk about e-tribes forming online communities. Does that make sense? To study human free immersions of the natural communities in an unobtrusive way. So it's just like hacking is cheating. It's just like falsify things to make something. So like, is hacking? Yeah, no, hacking is cheating. So that's a good question. I kind of trying to like form the implication of like, can you do research to make prediction on people's behavior online? And that feels to me like a better aspect of skills. Does that make sense? But I guess that has an appeal to me because it's harder to do, and if you can get that done, that should be impressive. That's a fucking cool story. The key difference between ethnography and social listening is that ethnography often requires ethnographers to become deeply engaged as active participants in online communities. So they have to make their uh, touch points more evident when they do things in interacting with people online. this this is probably a good idea. I feel like I know where I would push forward in terms of my own biases from conversion from online communities to yeah, I know where I would put my bias of like how if I am to approach netizens and how I would kind of like push where I want the development to go across in lines of like this in lines of this direction. So okay, yeah. So like again, one of the biggest things that makes something build up an excitement and drives people to it is conversation. Playing games that feel kind of like you're just doing the same menial task. I think this is a good portion of why this is a really old game. Why Maple Story was popular for me when I was young, not so much now. Um, I would have an implication of interacting with people online, doing something activities. Things are more the game kind of like lost its popularity, but like and I don't know if they'll ever get it back. But like it's just kind of like modulating in terms of like um, interacting with people, whether it was party quests. But the relevance is just has changed so much to the just like faster leveling guides or like a flex of nostalgia. Nostalgia being a bigger driving force for a lot of people who play old games back then to where they are now. So this is where I kind of like take a stance of like understanding popularity of certain game models. It's like how much people can interact. A good portion of enjoyments is the social community developing in there. So like how much they enjoy interacting with other players. Is it possible for them to do so? When did they get bored? Certain things. I think WoW's popularity came from their raids because raids had mechanics in it, and people had to like coordinate in certain ways to get certain things. It even picked up popularity for maybe like celebrities. A pretty actress also admitted to that. She doesn't play it now, right at this point. But like this is the driving force of like seeing uh, plasticity. I say plasticity in terms of the flexibility of how you can play and creativity in it, in lines of also being able to do something. And yeah, the model has to suggest some form of ways of like engaging their audience and interactive models. I think inevitably, if we talk about appealing to a digital market, gaming inevitably has to come into it because gaming is a form of entertainment that is very accessible and young people are going to want to get into. So yeah. When we come down to ratio, this is the biggest part. It indicates that customers who are made aware of a brand but not finding it appealing. Having just talked about this, the problem comes lines in poor positioning and poor marketing communications. Anyone knows what this is? And the ratio, fixing these problems may relate to attraction levels being close to the one. Method and approach behavior. An unconversion rate appeal to ask for a brand is a sign of low customer curiosity. Uh, so this is talking about a different A, right? Is this what we were exploring for like lines of this? So aware, act, and advocate. We talked about different A's here. Shit, I have to go back to the book. That's pretty fun. But like so this is so and generally a good conversion of like people exploring something is because you pick on their emotions. To comes lines of like appealing to what do you call a conversion rate from appeal to ask. Just so I can understand. Where does this come down into the market framework of what we're talking about? So yeah. However, the curiosity level of a brand should never be overly high. When customers have too many questions about the brand, it means the brand message is unclear. This is about talking about product projection, right? So that's what it is, right? So yeah, customer acquisition directly through the communication channels and loyal advocates. Marketers can never control the outcome of conversation with advocate. This is something that's volatile. Controlling customer satisfaction and enjoyment of engaging into something. This is volatility in in a focus on a customer support on people who like to buy things and engage with things. So curiosity is the only one that should be no closer to one. A low conversion rate from ask to act to brand indicates low commitment. So the big so I guess it's kind of a selfish emotion, but because they know too much, there's less implication for them to commit. That's how I understand it. Does that make sense? People talk about making a commitment to buy. People are talking about the brand. Usually, this means that the brand has failed to convert confirmed interest into purchase for distribution channel. There are possible marketing mix, 4P, product, price, place, and promotion flaws that may contribute to this failure. Customers find the actual products to be disappointed during trials, or the price may be too high. The salesperson is not convincing enough, and the product is not really available to the market. Fixing these issues will help the brand increase its commitment levels. The issue we have is commitment problems in lines of certain thought process of where I talk about a brand overdone and taken advantage of. Again, we're talking about products here, nothing else. We're talking about a widespread product that, maybe, let's talk about a puzzle. Game puzzles. Ever heard of these things? Model puzzles where the makers do something and then someone tries to solve it. There are some famous YouTubers that do these things. I watched a bit before and they're kind of fun to watch. But like if you know how all the tricks work, the conversion commitment rate is gonna be done. So the thing is, if you're selling a enigma, uh, then generally you can't know too much about it, or else the commitment level of knowing the puzzle is really low from the looks of it, of how people of people natural behavior. Sorry. Okay. So they comment lines of like net separating two empathetic of quality of experience for analyzing social networking system. Social listening. Social listening is a proactive process of monitoring what is being said about branding on the internet, particularly about social media and online communities. This can be very diluted. I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna have to choose sources where you take reviews seriously in terms of like satisfactions. I usually use Trustpilot to see the satisfaction of like quality experience, but then I'm having problems with one of the a website hub that I was using for like a part time jobs for like walking dogs, right? So one of those brands of the internet. So social media and online community. It often uses social media monitoring softwares to filter massive amounts of structured data from social conversions to usable customer intelligence information. Receipts and all that. You talk about those kind of things about purchases from big companies like Tesco's. They keep a record of what you buy and then make, sometimes they can kind of like put in a system to help you give you recommended coupons. I've had heard of this before, which is pretty cool. Social listening is used in a content marketing evaluation to monitor conversion of what happens around distribution content. It's also a useful tool for identifying leads and understanding prospects of social selling. Social listening is also commonly used in social customer relationship management to identify conversion that contains complaints and negative sentiments and potentially lead to brand or crisis. When marketers track their social conversions around their brand and their competitive brand, social listening is becoming a more effective tool for competitive intelligence. Aside from those applications, social listening is useful for market research. So this is where we talk about face-to-face interviews, phone surveys, and online surveys. Yes, this is how I was going to strategize in lines of giving options to see uh, on the implication of a product that I can't make and reaching out to publics, publics at the customer aims towards movie enjoyers in lines of products that they would enjoy and what they would buy. So this is the idea of like I would have used surveys to help get my qualitative data in lines of families going at movies to figure out if they wanted to buy a certain product and how much enjoyment they would have gotten in it. Uh, One idea of a starting brand line, the toy already exists, so I'm like, but that would have been perfect. I absolutely love the concept of it. It's the first time I saw it, I was like, shit, that's so cool. Shit, I wish I would. I thought of the idea. So it's just like, well, how do you build on? How would I build on now to like uh, the themes are just so good. So I would like take a sense of like, well, I have to theme it, but like, I wouldn't be the original source. So yeah, but like the idea of that toy is very appealing to me. uh, uh, so yeah, it's a useful tool for identifying leads and understanding prospect and social selling. So one of the things I said, like when targeting younger audience tend to have like a shorter they need more faster instant gratification. So they need to be able to play with something and see something of a result. That's why I was trying to contemplate ideas. What can do that? Like, I gotta show you the picture of the like what would have been perfect. I thought it would have been cool. I'll leave that long. Analysis, and this goes and converts to everything else that we come in lines as we develop as people in the digital age. We go and struggle for a subconscious implication. This book says, and the experts argue are happening already at 2025, so next year, where we subtly search for identities. What does it mean to be human in a digital world? Oh, okay, I get that. Marketers and like online, there's also a lot of controversy. As we said before, brand advocacy online have less of a emotional attachment to it, so they can kind of like there's less gravitation towards uh, making healthier connection and more in terms of like products and externalize externalize success, right? That's why I kind of take on an understanding for like this digital marketing things, where we talked about before, like this less yeah. So some product centric market pushed out in the online era would have maybe a reputation for being more human centric marketing, but it's kind of hard because like this is the same problem we had before about localizing new brands. brands focus on being appealed are better localized compared to AOE, right? In that kind of sense, right? So like that's how I kind of understand these kind of things. As we transition to yeah, yeah. Um, so in this context, people may feel more anxious about stuff, generalized anxiety. Yeah. In human-centric marketing, we believe it's still the key to building brand attraction individual as brands with human character will arguably will arguably be the most differentiated. The process starts by unlocking customers' deeper anxieties and desire. It requires emphatic listening and immersive research on what is known as digital anthropology. Uh, Human sides of customers has been uncovered, and it's time for brands to uncover their human sides. Brands need to demonstrate human attributes that can attract customers and build human to human connection. So, like, it's the whole idea of like uh, the connectivity of the spokesperson that's advocated for the brand. If people can put their feelings in the lines that's thinking that this person is uh, they like interacting with this, they had fun with certain things, then there would come lines of say pushing out that it's likely to bring in sales. Now this is where we talk about a responsible spokesperson. And I know everyone's niche is going to be different, but even I found certain niche spokesperson to be healthy attachments in gaming. It comes down to like just starting. Like if I have to describe a Pokemon one, right? So like I like that he really made an emphasis of like he really enjoyed. He had some like mundane job, right? And then when he started working, he did stuff like got into shiny hunting, being a big deal because like it's in the game perspective, it's like it has high value for aesthetics use. It's like a kind of like a trophy thing, right? And like he built his like content based on that, and it peaked popularly enough in the Pokemon community, which again is kind of like kids for stuff, right? And then now he's kind of like, I think his example because I think he's a great example of like developing a brand even in or whatever medium. Now gaming Pokemon is kind of easier, right, in comparison to like developing a brand identity in some harder stuff like sports or like career driven prospects of learning things, right? So like tests or like exams and all that related to medicine or law or whatever. Right? So that's much harder to kind of like build a brand advocacy in that kind of sense. But where I could kind of like push out is the idea is that one of the things that pulled me into now I'm not wealthy. Okay, my circumstances are very difficult. But like when I did have money, I was more keen to buy in products where I thought influencers uh, I took a liking to certain influencers, and he did do things like charities. He did do stuff like gaming for less unfortunate kids who were what do you call um, born in hospitals and brought related stuff like gaming tools for them to play. And then at this point, he started developing his own branding, writing on the popularity of like marketing values of like Pokemon cards. Because at some point during pandemic as well, for some reason, a lot of Pokemon cards, OG classic things from like toys from like people's childhood, were getting sold quite high for what their original value. I'd never gone to that market, just heard of it, and it was like very interesting to me. I think that should have dipped down, and how people were marketing just in terms of collectibles, right? Things like people could put the money thing and talk big about things. Because Pokemon, I don't think Pokemon branch merchandise is ever going to die down. Even though I wasn't putting the whole emphasis of like how I'm pushing things currently. And a lot of it is reactionary towards people looking at my channel, enjoying it, and want to see me put more effort in that direction because they like uh they like that I guess they like that I show gratitude for their work. That's the best way of summarizing it. And where we take a stance now is just like the idea of like hypothetical ideas of like where I put my own thought process of like trying to push those sex, but like in a sense they're leading me in some ways. I pick and choose which ones I want to like follow in terms of a lead. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's kind of like the direction for it. So yeah. So let's kind of like summarize it in this kind of way. Okay. Netnography or emphatic research. Give me a few seconds to like figure this out. Certain things in this book, the successful career toolkits that I was reading through, marking certain parts, but there were things that kind of like spark a light in me in terms of like expressions of like things that I lives, particularly in implication of leading teams and being an effective leader. Um, Always getting an idea of like you're being goal oriented, what you're trying to do, what is it that I'm trying to get my team to do. So knowing what you want and knowing what you want to achieve, making that goal and set task to be able to get things done. Team leader must ask the following: does everyone in my team have a purpose? Is everyone clear what is expected of them and what is expected from other people in their team in terms of meeting fulfillment of what needs to be done? And have I created an environment where the team can individually and collectively do their best work and feel good about it? So here is the other thing about the right team culture, which is very well stressed out in lines of Stephen Barnett's videos, 16 steps towards uh, 16 steps towards starting and scaling a multi-million business. Now, I'm going to give my own perspective on the review on it. It's slightly ambitious on certain things of talking about this, especially if you're on the starting ground of it, escalating on things. But I'd like to get stance of like how the videos are carrying out so far. It kind of is the lines of like kind of setting the bar of like seeing. I feel like he got the right guidance and mentor that led him to give him direction to not need to go in detail of some of the maybe the more like he had a really rough past. I'm not gonna lie about that, but like the implication of application and having access to like contacting investors feels strange to me. I feel like it's always a kind of stepwise process for them to give them your time. But the impression is that when you know you're going to make them, they are available to talk, you want to make those moments count. That gives them a sense of like spark, kind of like indication that they have an interest here and lines of thinking that you are compatible with them in certain ways. So let's get talk about these aspects. So uh, it is important to establish a culture for the team to ensure that the culture is maintained as the composition of the team changes over time. This is true. Habits and behavior of professional may change orientated towards how the team decides to move. But a very strong group of people have that kind of flexibility. Have you made it easy for people to challenge you and others on the team? This is the line of authority. If people aren't too happy with the discretion of like who's trying to manage things, there can be some discretion on things. The team members feel comfortable bringing bad news to the team. If there's a blame culture, it is likely to will avoid bringing bad news. This may prevent the team from dealing with efficiency as issues. So this is kind of a culture thing. Some things you can kind of say, okay, but in terms of efficiency and being goal oriented, getting like to getting things done and like making that wow effect. It's actually the wow effect is kind of like elaborated in the marketing 4.1 of things that kind of like I'll read it to you like kind of contact visualize what are these things that he's talk about wow factors, right? But like here, epilogue. What is the wow? From Jang's story, the wow. This is a good example. I came across this before. This person went to do a social media experiment, deviation account for a wow. I didn't expect that. It's a personal. It can be triggered by the person experiencing it. He made a request on different people, 100 absurd requests, and was expecting to get rejection. You may have heard the request where he made one towards Krispy Kreme if they could do a form of donuts origin in the style of the Olympic logo. And surprisingly, after getting so many rejections, um, Jackie Baum of Krispy Kreme did exactly what he asked for. So after making those weird requests, he made a YouTube video, and I could give you and the link is given in this book. And I've also come across this where it was watched about a million times. The storytelling from someone actually decided to listen to this shenanigan off shenanigan requests and took it seriously and made something of it. And I think that was the wow factor, just because the expectation was no one thought they would. And most of these implications would have been ignored because they're weird requests. So this book kind of lines of talking about certain things. When one has a certain expectation to get more, there's a wow moment. A deviation to an expected outcome is what creates a wow. A second wow is personal and can be triggered only by the person experiencing it. If James had not made an odd request, he would not have experienced regular services like Krispy Kreme. And a patient's hidden anxiety, when fulfilled, will trigger a wow moment. So, like, having gone through so many series of rejections in his attempt, the unexpected came, and then that gave it the wow factor. So being the underdog and having results on the expectation is part of the wow factor. The wow factor is contagious. One can experience a wow factor and will advocate to spread the good news to many others. This is the other thing about advocacy when it comes down to product linings becoming popular and people talking about it, because people were impressed. Conversation stirred and spread out, and this cause gets people really excited about something and want to experience something similar. This is where we talk about brand, strengthening a brand or something, like centering an image of something. So this is what it comes down to. Because this video, simple video, just the story we told was just the implication of, like, doing 100 odd requests and seeing who would take the request seriously. And one did it for the Krispy Kreme, and it reached about 5 million people because of his exceptional service. Now, we're not talking about promoting implications, because, like, a YouTube algorithm is always going to come in line with that, paying a certain amount of money for this and what so. But, like, this video got 5 million people to watch it. I will come in lines of, like, when you put funding. So we're not going to talk about funding in relation to promoting videos, in relation to extrapolate the viewership. Because even if you put a certain amount, I haven't experimented that much for the aspect of promotion. And how that gets done is also a mystery to me. Not so much a huge emphasis. I mean, for the most part, it's like a team thing. Not my basis of what I'm doing for the sake of this video, but this is what the feeling is in terms of, like, when I'm talking about a wow factor. Uh, and yeah, and that kind of brings on to the fifth age, and we're talking about advocacy. So this is coming on. So now we were coming back to it. It's just like a successful leaders understand the motivational power of giving appropriate recognition to other team members, not just ignoring things, but, like, when someone has done something in a very uh, constructive manner that you think is appropriate in the setting and the time that things are done. It's not just like repeat, recycle, adapt to the environment, adapt to the new goal. And when recognition can be done, appreciation can be made and expressed, that can give a person a lot of energy, a good form of boost. Because especially in circumstances where there's a hierarchy of strength. So don't underestimate the power of the leader of being able to pay a simple compliment and how it can make someone that's a subordinate feel, right? As that says, especially if the leader is well respected and well liked. Have you get enough time for innovation, creative things? Do your thoughts with these criticisms? Things that are also kind of lines I wanted to talk about was level delegation. This is not so much in terms of the review video that I'm going to do, but, like, it came in to make understanding of certain workers that can show implication of whether they need to be told something or whether they need to move it themselves. You empower the individual to do research, but you retain the responsibility to come up with a recommendation and all the decision making afforded. A lot of, like, high authority figures are going to have like that. They want to control what their understaffment is doing it. So in generation of, like, market that can be approached are things come lines of, like, CPG companies, and the implication is, like, these are kind of like products that are bought that will need to be are like they're I forgot what the word is, like, resources that gets used and will get what do you call it? Will get used basically, and you need to replace them. You need establishment of food. So if you're ever, like, looking into a market where you feel like it's a staple thing, like it's not just a one-off buy, and basically it's something that it's like the idea of a commodity. You need it. We need it in our everyday life, functioning, socializing, and establishing connections on manner where we try to like push ourselves further in life. Like where I kind of like establish myself in goals as well in my own reality. It's just like that's the circumstances of the situation. Um, so where I take a stance is just like I talk about innate emphasis on me just because of like where I could have channeled some of my own biases on certain things with certain implication that I'll know what I'll know, but like a thought process in my head came in lines of like activity. Where would the money be placed in a lot of like film industry movies that are popular in lines of like its success, which I thought where I took a good understanding was uh kids movies or actually kid movies are bigger implication of like channeling forms of revenues currently for why I take an understanding in popularities. It makes sense in terms of families bringing kids to see those films. I took a stance of like if you ever need to do an advocacy on current ongoing means, even the movie that I had strong resonance were targeted for like younger audience, but adults can still watch it, right? But still like around PG 14, 15. There was a lot of other films with different ratings, but all of them were indicator base of like teens to like younger. So like the implication of like if you were to do a product on existing, meaning turning it conversion to a brand, which is hypothetical thinking, because like it just was a fun idea to explore, and I thought I talked about it in my channel in this position, what would suit my kind of contextual basis of it. The actual reality of it is like alone is just not possible. Again, as I said, but like uh, where I take the stance of it would have been toys. Toys would have been the direction I felt would have helpfully depicted of me trying to convert something that was an accident and over propagated, turn into fame. So like, yeah, I'm famous, but people are like not like celebrity, but like relatively famous. But like, uh, I guess it's kind of weird because like people don't connect to me with the work or content that I make, or maybe they haven't seen it or whatever. So I have to like make a recommendation of wanting to watch it if you want to see some of the things I was trying to do efforts. And a lot of it is going to come in lines of my own performance. If I'm seeing you, I'm doing a performance, I'm going to tell you check this video out. Or like if you're in lines of the hobbies that I like, it's so easy for you to like gravitate into what I talked about because I have influences in the medical direction, taking a perspective like liking analyzing certain things in films, and it's good it's a good way for me to have fun. So I'm watching a film and then talking about it. It's like, what did you like about it? What's all this is? You kind of get perspective of my own personality when I do these reviews, and like it's it was kind of a reactional thing about being fed up about certain things, right? So um yeah, and like I take a sense of like what is it? Um what was it? So yeah, so like in terms of that, the other target aside from that is like a reusable content. So I don't think I'm going for that a CPG market, a leading CPG consumer base, right? Because like movies popularities, if you write a movie's popularities, they kind of like peak, and then a new movie comes out, and then that comes in. Does that make sense? Like, so like I think that is the biggest implication for in terms of like entertainment and values on for games or stuff that was funny, which I think is getting to the point where everyone's just trying to like move on. From my perspective of things, it was just like a conceptualized idea of like having fun, delving into a different kind of market on just a reactionary to circumstances. Uh, it's just unfortunate I just can't substantiate it. But that's it. Just make that comparison on that. No, that's a reality, as well. So industry is high BRA medians but narrow BRA range. Customers are generally willing to recommend brands, even though there is no player dominating the BRA spread. So again, BRA kind of stands for brand advocacy ratios. So how much does a brand gets advocated through through friends, families talking about something. I can recall doing that, like I just mentioned, like listening to Skull Candy sings, just liking the logo, and what using it when I would talk to my little brother more. My social activity in terms of like shopping isn't so good right now, just because I'm broke. um, but like it makes sense. Again, as I said, it makes sense. Like I feel where in terms of like where I channel things, my market audience would probably be targeted for younger without massive amount of there's no like it's not that I don't do these things, but the way everything is themed in my channel, there's no sexualization. This I've made an attempt because I was trying to do active trading to see if I could make money in the implication of trying to see if I could make enough money to figure out. Well, I guess to say it was like for my situation, for the circumstances, and I always thought making money was good. At the time, I was looking into the implication of like laundering, no pyramid schemes being a big strategy in relation to cryptocurrency. And one of the most famous things that came in mind, which was Bitcoin, which was a huge hassle because a lot of people made money from it. And this transitioned on from like NFTs and transitioned for online purchases of collectibles, trying to understand what those related to it, because like basically they hold value, and it's kind of like a scalping method of just like you sell it on the peaks, and you sell at the peaks, and it's kind of hard at this point because like but I had some notes that I made trying to learn on online gurus, which you can say it's just like you may have a bit more reservation on approaching them. They're not they're a business as well. You gotta understand that they're a business independently. There's also digital application tools that can help you with the prognosis. No, sorry, not the prognosis, the determination of whether a market price trade goes up, where a market goes up or go down. And a lot of these resources you can kind of come across it. Now, again, it's one of those things that is more supported if you're going to educational training in relation to active trading. But yeah, at the same time, you can try to do a digital trading with different platforms as they all exist in different ways. Um, I think one of the meme ones that was funny is Shiba Inu and oil and records into consumer gases. But like the biggest thing is I didn't understand how trading works, and it is definitely something that you need good people. You need a good team. So that's what combines in terms of trading, investing, in mutual fund, and talking to your bank manager branches to see if you can grow income is a good way. I don't think the economy was going too well, but a good portion of it was just like if you mess with people who are more have a larger influence in the X sector of business, yeah, there's going to be huge consequences on a large scale on insults that I've seen already. I felt that was implied in that kind of manner. I'm not in the business sector, so I can't really say anything about that because like I was just trying to delve and understand some of these things. And I was going to say is like there was a lot of different aspects of like where you could go into making businesses. Just go by sitting these conferences, listening in, and again, all of it is a business, right? Investing is investing in a group of people, and you don't know your outcome. I'm doing things on a smaller scale, but like some of these investment projects are asking you to do things in a larger scale. And then the implication is some people have been in debt, but they say they scrapped themselves out of there. I was taking it instead of saying, no, that's not the amount of risk that I would take on my own circumstances. So it's just like, can you play the riches game, right? Generally, I would have thought, like, a lot of things that's talked here, like, I could see so much potential money that could be made, even within my own playground here, but it's lost because the people that own this are just not efficient. They're kind of stupid. The best way of saying lazy. Uh, I can't do anything. I don't own this shit, and I know projects are going from like a relation to some of the things completely lost. It's just because like he just doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't do the basic shit. So like, it's just like for me, it's just like he stays stagnant. So I don't really give a shit about that stuff. Like I'm trying to see if I can build on the efforts of my own aspects. Property investing would be great. Commodities being a huge rush, and we were talking about the overlap of memes related to the stagflation. I'm putting prices too high. And I came across some very interesting experiences, but came across issues in relation to taxing, which I just don't really understand. Again, the market value is kind of the market thing is kind of like implied that I've lost money. I've lost money basically trying to trade and thinking that I was going to put funds to the side. Generally, if I had wages in the side, I was going to do it. I get a good impression that trading is more directed towards in terms of like what it really should be doing. It should be doing in comparison to actually saying that the stories where people do go from very little capital to large funds, it's a commercial thing. That's my stance on it. This is the honest truth of it for online gurus. Like, you can also check out Rudy's the Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read one book of it. There's a lot of different book installments, but it's well supported. I think from some people. My cousin read it, and she is in the finance market, trying to work in a bank. Working in the bank was the prospect of wanting to like move up and do better stuff, right? So like um I don't have a solid foundation of going to college, and it's not worth it for me to do this things kind of college where I am steady in terms of like my education and where I put most of my money already. So like I wouldn't be able to like just get access to that. Even in relevance of like conversion, and is it worth it? It's weird, right? Because like I trying to wait for a straight answer from somewhere, and that's not coming. That's not becoming too obvious. So we're just doing some side hustle projects without overthinking, and then following up was the healthcare team on what I could provide in documentation. But yeah, yeah. The best thing to say is this: like, I'm not gonna hit back. I'm not gonna hold back to say like uh, I'm gonna put a decent amount of funds in this and see if these strategies work, and then publish the video to get you all an idea of what finance can be feel like when you're trying what seems like legit strategies on like figuring out how to make money. Is it all capitalized in one place, or is it can anybody get into this and make something on simple strategies? Right? Basically, do the rich completely hold all the power, or is it a thing that comes in lines with healthy communities building up, wanting to um, be able to support something or what so? Basically, you're selling a brand. Whatever you do and whatever you proportion is, you're selling yourself. I've heard this so many times. You're selling yourself, and if people like you and can see the direction where you want to take, you're more likely to entice them. So proactively do stuff. Being passionate about something that's healthy and going to school, education in the direction of that is a good framework of being able to take a stance that why you stand out in ways that people can choose they like you or they don't like you. Welcome to the real. So like this book likes to separate the level of delegation to I guess you could say assess their employee subordinates independence and ability to like move and act in emotion without the need to monitor them, right? So like when you give an individual to do homework, they do all the work and you have the responsibility. So all the mistakes or all the issues that they have comes in lines of your responsibility. That's 100% of the manager's involvement. So accountability gets done towards them. Your subordinate does something bad, the manager gets blamed. Whoever is the spokesperson, they get blamed. Their image is tarnished in a sense for competitive aspects unless there's like a safety net. You empower an individual to do research and make a recommendation, but your routine approval and decision making authority. So like you tell them to do work and make a recommendation, but you again have the final say. 85% of the management involved. You empower the individual to do research and make the decision, but do not act upon a decision without your prior approval. So they're going to make they're waiting for you to they're waiting to act on something, but they need your approval to do something. 70%. So like a lot of managements are like flagging. That's what I'm trying to say towards a subordinate's actions or research given to the task that's given to them before they carry out a motion to do something. Because you are trying to like evoke feelings onto either, it depends your target audience, a specific person or a large target audience on certain things. And you can't keep, reusing the same tricks on certain things to get people kind of like, huh, exciting. You empower the individual to do research, make the implement the decision without your prior approval, and just inform you when the action is taken. So they now corresponds of like wanting to make a plan, and they do their research on someone. They implement the decision without the prior approval, so they don't ask the manager to make that movement for them. And all they do is tell the person that's in charge when they're doing this. That's 10%. That's impressive. Someone going out of lines of deciding a timing effect for the effect to occur on the recipient. So having a good plan is awesome in terms of like of in terms of like being able to get an effect on an individual and things. You empower the individual to do research, make the implement decision without your prior approval and involvement of any aspects of the process. 0%. So this talks about the level of like where you measure a employee's a subordinate skill and to carry out effect on whatever their goal is, and how much they need to be guided or monitored. I thought this was an interesting. That's why a plan is having a plan, and having a plan and a strategy helps out, and then having someone proofread that before you make an action to make sure the effect comes into lines of what you wanted. Okay, let's move on. Here comes another thing. Yeah, no, okay, let's move on. I got other stuff. It's like converting all my files, video files related to this book, onto my hard drive. A lot of things to assimilate all the data, brainstorming information, converting it to my product of like my next release channel. Being about 4 days of like trying to see, exploring hustle options, I decided without too much success on another alternative part-time job, and I haven't put in too much effort in lines of displaying charity shots for eBay, but knowing that it would link to my brand channel regardless. It's a big project to do these things. It's absolutely, utterly takes a lot of time from learning resources to making understanding how you want to plan something to make your public setting on these things. It's fun enough though. I can see a lot of attachment coming to this already from me and my own bias, right? So yeah. Slightly curious why the author kind of talks about 4 major industry archetypes. I have no idea what it says. 4 major patterns that exist across industry: a doorknob, a goldfish, a trumpet, and a funnel. It has some identification, but I literally can't find the link between all of them, so I don't get it. Social justice in many ways, empowering women, fair trade, and employee diversity. The death of Anita Roddick. However, the brand has somewhat lost its activist appeal. The Router brand and its 40th birthday is launched enrich, not exploit. Exploit. This is a different thing I won't really explore. The basis of why I make this conversational channel, it's pure in lines of like trying to get success in lines of like theoretically reading, using practical theory, and measuring your success when you try to found the foundations where you want to focus something in your brand making, in your company, and how you measure your success and customer support. So with me having a lot of like things that are kind of gray in my head on figuring out. And there's no practice because it's just a fun hobby that I'm trying to just getting into it. Also, I'm like watching obviously like expert sources when we go into conversation and engaging with investors, tracking debt. Hey everyone, thank you for putting the effort to watch the effort I placed on making something of an entertaining video. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said before, it's not forced, but like I really would appreciate any contribution and support you give to this channel, as it gives me more motivation and more incentive to enjoy more video creating and content creation. If you find that the content's drifts away at any point, you can always unsubscribe. It's no big deal. Again, it doesn't mean much. It doesn't take much from you, but it means a whole bunch of me, and it would feel great if you would just reward my efforts of trying to be positive and contributionary. Thank you so much. Bye.